There's coffee in that nebula.
How you doing, fellas?
Oh, shit. Hi,
That's not decaf, is it?
Viennese cinnamon.
I don't know why that's still fun. What the fuck is going? There you go. I'll get Don over here, and there I am. There we go. Now we've got it set up.
Are we ready to go?
I'm ready to do something. If I'm not careful, if I drink too much caffeine, I'll be running to the bathroom. I used to tell people in the Army, man, one of the first things I learned about coffee, man, that thing keeps you regular.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, I got it down to where I usually make my recon about 7 a.m. to 7:15 my time. So
yeah, see, you've got that. I like that. I kind of have that same kind of system down, and man, I got to tell you, since I was a teenager, man, I have a routine, and if that routine gets thrown off by the slightest, man, it messes me up. And Fuel Up has a real, because I love Fuel Up, and this show is brought to you by Fuel Up. Fuel Up does a job, man. It does a job. I love Fuel Up.
I've been running the last few days with a little anxiety. Vicky, this past weekend, with the Easter weekend, was down at her church group, and she lost her cell phone. So yeah, that is not a good thing. I couldn't find it anywhere. I mean, so anyway, being Easter weekend, I didn't do anything until Monday morning. I called up our provider and had that line canceled out. Then I bought her a new phone from them. It's not here yet. It should be here, I'm hoping today or tomorrow. But I got to tell a little secret about my beloved spouse. And I love that woman with all my heart. But, and I
don't say what you said to me last night.
Yeah. my beloved wife is Vicky, she who must be obeyed, the Princess of Darkness. And when it comes to electronic devices, that woman has I don't know if it's bad karma or what. Now, I'll give you an example. She took my cell phone. She had some appointments yesterday. And I said, look, baby, take my cell phone, so if you have anything and you need to get in touch, whatever. So she said, okay. So she took it. And then, Gary, I swear to God, as God made little green apples, she tried to call me 5 times on my cell phone, and none of them went through. And I checked it when she got home. I tried to call her. She answered it, but then nobody was there. That happened a couple of times. So she's got, I don't know if it's an electromagnetic thing or whatever.
It's the NSA, man. That's what's going on.
It could be. Who knows?
Some guy from the NSA is a prankster, and he's like, let's just mess with him this week. Well, no calls going through. There you go.
I'll tell you what, I support Don's theory. I had a friend that he couldn't use my computer. Everybody could use my computer. The moment he sits in front of it, it went right straight to hell.
Well, one more thing to prove that there's something going on. I bought a little device. It's from a computer company out of Canada called the Fix-It Stick. Okay. And it's like a little thumb drive, but it's made out of it's metallic, it's metal. It plugs into your computer. It runs on the Linux system, and it will go into. It doesn't matter if you got an Apple computer, if you've got I almost said MS DOS, a Windows computer. It'll go in and do a complete scan on your system for malware, viruses, whatever. Now, I use this. I've got two computers that I use primarily. I got my laptop and my desktop and Vicky's computer. So I hadn't run a scan on her computer for a while. So the day before yesterday, I said, well, I'm going to run a scan on your computer because she had something pop up that was making her crazy.
You know, you need to mess with her sometime when you say that. Just put your hand out to the computer and go, whoop, 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 whoop. I think you're losing your mind.
Well, it took about 3.5, 4 hours for this complete scan to be run on her computer. And sure enough, there was a virus on there that this thing found and got rid of, right?
Right.
So I said, okay, sweetheart, it's all ready for you to go. She goes in, she sat down, and she said, Dawn, and I knew immediately. I said, yeah, hon, there's something wrong with my computer. And I said, what? It won't let me go to my email. So I go in. She said, that Fix-It stick, it took all my stuff away. And I said, no, honey, it doesn't do that. And I went in and checked. And sure enough, she sat down and everything freaking disappeared. So, you know, what can I tell you? What can I tell you?
Well, look, man, technology. So many times, I mean, in the past,
just zeros and ones, dude. That's all it is.
Zeros and ones, binary, man. I remember back in the 90s, I got a virus once, and my boss made the joke, stop going to those porn sites, Gary. And I said, oh, I use a filter. I'll wear a condom. But he knew better. I'm Catholic.
Hey, well, you're Catholic, huh?
Catholic.
Have you been approached by the FBI?
Well, it's funny
see
you bring it up.
If you want to be an informant,
when you have to go through your clearances, I don't know who those fuckers are that go visit my family and friends. That's the question. Has he ever been or has he ever been or is actively a communist?
Oh, well, that's great. We'll sign him right up.
Yeah. Well, today they're like, oh, good. But so it is Wednesday, middle of the week, Mittwoch, as they say in German. I normally would try to throw a little accent to that, but Anima's watching, and I know it annoys her when I do German without an accent.
Oh, no, wait a minute. No, Penny, no, sweetheart. It works great. The Fix-It stick works great. It's just my wife that has the electronic.
She has the devil in her hands. By the way, good morning, everybody. Let's see who's all here today. We got Anima is here in the audience. That woman that supposedly loves me, although I do things that I don't know why she does. Fishbelly is here. Penny is here. Slasher Fred is here. Let's see. Dragon Ruse has joined us. Joe's Atmosphere is here. Let's see. Anybody else? John Ostains is here. What is up, John? John says, no need to hear at least one recording of Mrs. Ecker's UFO updates or landing pad. I really do want to try to get her on the show. It's so much fun. We get to yell at her in the background or listen to her smashing pans around in the kitchen when she's loudly cooking. I remember back in the 80s when we had those Apple II. I remember the Commodore 64, man.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I didn't have the first one on the block, man. It took me a while to get one. But my buddy Brian, hey Brian. Brian had he was a member of the long-haired weirdos gang. My godfather, my father, priest, Gerald T. Weems, would call us a bunch of long-haired weirdos. Because we're all in rock bands playing drums and shit, and they were guitarists. Both my buddies were guitarists, and so we were always like hanging out and over at Brian's house playing on his Commodore 64. He had the first version. I think it was Zelda. I visually remember it, but I can't remember the name of the game. But I think it was Zelda, like the first iteration of it. And I'm just like, what the hell is that? So you can have an arcade in your house? Hell yeah! Man, 80s were awesome. Alex Moore is here.
My first
Alex
computer.
Moore, this one is live. No, it's not. This is a recording.
Remember X.
I just happened to be reading from a previous message where you had asked the question, is this one live?
My first computer was a Tandy 1000 EX.
Radio Shack.
Radio Shack computer. In
I miss Radio Shack.
1987, okay, I bought my first computer. And I got to tell you, dudes, it was truly deep, passionate, oh my God, orgasmic love at first keystroke, okay? It was beyond. And then I compounded that error by buying a 300 baud modem for $100. Can you imagine? A modem, a 300 baud. Do you even know what that is?
I
Yep.
have no idea.
Yeah,
That's the rate at which data flows across the phone line.
Is that what it is?
baud. Yep.
$100. That would allow you to go online through your telephone, okay, your landline, through your telephone, primarily to BBS's, bulletin board services, because at that point, almost nobody had heard of America Online or CompuServe, which were the primary, ways you could go online. And it was actually that 300 baud modem and CompuServe that brought me into UFO research. That's another story for another day. But having said that, you mentioned games.
Yeah.
I found a game that hooked me like crack, okay, called Starflight. Have
Yep.
you ever heard of Starflight?
Yeah.
Starflight
John has
1 and 2.
apparently. Yeah. I remember that game.
Oh my God. Now, I had a very funny story that happened with that game. My buddy, who was a Nom brother, okay, his name was Chuck. When I got that game and I brought it home, I bought it. It cost me, oh God, it came on two 360K floppies. All right. And
God, I remember floppies. They were horrible.
you had to sometimes during the middle of the game you had to change floppies. So you eject one, stick the other in real quick, and keep going. Well, I told Chuck what this game was, Starflight. So I said, come on down, man. I said, we'll check it out. So he came down, and we started playing that thing. And we were both oblivious. I mean, as far as we were concerned, we were in outer freaking space, all right?
Right.
Playing this game. And his wife called. Dinner's ready. Get your ass home. So he said, I got to go. I said, all right, dude. All right. He said, but I'll be back. So he split, and about 2 hours later, he comes back to my place, knocks on the door. I said, yeah. He said, it's Chuck. I said, well, come in. He came in, and he was carrying a box of wine. Okay. A
Box of wine. I love those.
Yeah. And we started playing this thing again. And I guess it was about 11:30 that night. The phone rang. I answered it. It was his wife. I said, it's your wife. She said, are you coming home? And he mumbled. Okay. Well, make a long story short, he was still there at 6:30 in the morning. So, and his wife, after that, stopped talking to me. She thought I was leading him wrong. But oh my God, yeah. I wrote a piece about that. As a matter of fact, I'll have to dig that out and send it to you. Get a charge out of it. But oh yeah, computers, man.
Yep, I remember
changed.
You remember what?
I'm sorry, but continue,
Yeah.
John.
Oh, I was going to say, I remember when Sid Meier's Pirates came out. As soon as I got it, I spent 36 hours straight playing that game, just sailing all around.
You were just talking about that, where you,
Yeah, I was sailing all around the Caribbean, taking on cargoes, taking them to another place, selling them, getting in sword fights, taking over ships. It was addictive.
You're a nerd.
Yes, I am. Proudly so.
We have two breaches at the moment.
Oh, let me guess. One's Monkey Jeebus.
Yeah, and the another
No
is
way.
Unreal Wade.
By the way, I see Loki is here. Good morning, Loki.
Yeah.
How you doing, my friend? Real Wade Nation. And, of course, Monkey Jeebus is here. Good morning. Glad to see everybody. So you want to go ahead and play the Breach videos here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. As soon as I can
I'm
find
waiting.
them.
Okay.
Jibus, this is just for you.
Open your back door, baby. Loosen your hinges, I'll show you my key.
Don't forget, we do have some new ones.
Wait, yeah. And let me play the one
Real
for
Wade's got
Real
one too. Yep.
Maybe we only need like 3 stink bombs. You better give me the other ones.
Okay, I drop these 3 stink bombs, smell up the joint, and slip out the back door.
Slip out the back door. One of the earliest movies to use the internet was the 1984 thriller The Net with Sandra Bullock. It was focused on the internet. We were using the early version of it in high school, and it was how colleges communicated with one another. And we got on there, and I got to tell you something. You haven't played Lunar Lander video game until you try to play it. It's the computer version using a dot matrix printer for every single movement.
I almost told you
we're going to one movement, then it prints the next movement, and you just sort of like, oh, what's going to happen next? It's stupid.
Man, I was hoping you were going to say in its original Klingon.
In its original Klingon. I'm sorry, Monkey, I did not do that one. I know he hates that one. I love making Gerry laugh. Ha 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 ha.
Back in the old BBS days, I used to play a game called Empire.
That's called the bulletin board system.
Yep. Except I was playing it on like a dozen different bulletin board systems. So I had like a dozen different games of Empire going at the same time. And Empire was a text-based strategy game where you fight armies and stuff like that. That's all text based.
Yeah, even you telling sounds really just awful. Just sounds awful to me. I hate those games. I am the worst friend in the world to have when you want to play a strategy or really in-depth RPG game. The minute you say it, I'm like, the second you say the name of the game, you walk around, I got a brand new game, right? You get excited. I'm over there going, oh, it's going to be one of those. Oh. Did somebody bring beer? Then I lighten up. The minute they go, yeah, we got beer. And I'll go, okay, I can take this. I'll drink my way through it.
What do you know? Dragon Roots is breaching too.
Get the hell out of here. He never breaches.
Well,
holy crap, he did. Look at that. All right. What do we got for him? I got that new video. Let's see if I can find that one. Where is it? There it is. Boom. Brand.
Suck. Close up that back door.
That's how you give somebody an order. You quietly tell them to close up that back door. Boy, oh boy, Don, you'd enjoy it. You know my buddy, you met him, Marine Joe Zeitz. He made a comment over in our Facebook group about, yeah, I like that movie that I did on Monday, Tears of the Sun with Bruce Willis. And he made just sort of off the wall, things. Says, I liked it, but I really think that there was problems with, the film, little problems with the film. Then he made the comment of what he thought it was, just a quick one, where he thought that it just wasn't very realistic. And then I said, hold my fucking beer. And I sat and I wrote a 4-paragraph explanation of why that film is so damn realistic. Is because it was beat for beat what actually happened. Every single thing that you think is a Hollywood trope is what actually was done. Every single tactic used in that film was not only from the book, but was supervised by one of the greatest Navy SEAL operator technicians that ever worked in Hollywood. He's 82 years old now. That guy is still working his ass off in Hollywood. And I said, when I was done, and he goes, please, Gerry, tell me how you really feel. Because I laid into him. I'm like, dude, don't you fucking say that about that film. And then I make fun of him because, everybody knows that knows Joe Zeitz knows that he was a Marine, but he was a Marine Pogue. He was a rear echelon motherfucker. And by the way, I want to thank the quiet person in the room is Chanel. Chanel is quietly backstage running a show. She's probably actually just like kicked back with her feet up and she's spitballs in the air.
I always see her sitting back there knitting,
Knitting. Making crochet dinosaurs. Or flying saucers. Making crochet flying saucers. But we are going to talk about today something that you did. You got right in the middle of this because this is in the middle of the night, right in the early 90s, actually. Because I was still
97.
Was it 97? God, it seems so much earlier than that to me. I was still in the Army. But I was in the reserves at this point. I went into the active reserves. I just remember sitting on TV going, what is this? Why is this a thing? This is so weird. And of course, what we're talking about is Heaven's Gate. Heaven's Gate was this cult that had been around since you said the late 60s?
Yeah, early 70s, yeah.
Because I'm watching the documentary. It's right now. It's on HBO. And I'm second episode in. I think it's 4 episodes. This is a fucked up group.
Well, okay. The very first
The two people are what's messed up.
Bo and Pete, yeah.
Yep.
Marshall Applewhite, and for the life of me, I can't remember her name, but they were two whack jobs extraordinaire.
Mhm.
Well, at any rate, nothing, gang, nothing happens in a vacuum. And Heaven's Gate is a perfect example of that. Now, when you think of Heaven's Gate today, you think about this bunch of crazy people that all committed suicide, all right, which they did. But there was so much more. And I wrote a piece which basically I sent to Gerry. Gerry, we ought to make
I've got
that
it right here.
available.
It's April 10, 1997, Aftermath, Heaven's Gate. Who is responsible? Is your article by Don Ecker.
Right. And to show you how extensive this was and how it impacted the UFO field, and not only the UFO field, but American society at large, the media, okay. Let me just go down and give you a bunch of names that ultimately were all a part of this mess, all right? Alan Hale, astronomer.
I was about to say, not the skipper from Gilligan's Island.
No. Art Bell of Coast to Coast Radio. Major Ed Dames. Dr. Doom, okay, who for years had been billing himself as a remote viewer extraordinaire. Dr. Courtney Brown and his webmaster, Prudence Calabresi, Whitley Strieber, Larry King, okay, my favorite, Mr. Chuck Schrammick. Now, a lot of these names, you won't have a clue who they were. And in many regards, it was Chuck Schrammick that really was the igniter of this whole thing. Now, Chuck Schrammick was a guy that I knew at that time for years. We had never met, but Chuck, who lived in Houston, Texas, was a Houston radio personality, had been a big fan of my first radio show, UFOs Tonight. And Chuck used to call in the show frequently, and the guy was a kick. Funny as hell. He would call in, usually had something extremely humorous to say. And we were, as far as we could go via the telephone, the radio, we were good friends. Well, Chuck was also an amateur astronomer. And at that time, the Hale-Bopp comet was lighting up the heavens. Now, Alan Hale, of course, was one of the two guys that originally had discovered the comet, okay, Hale-Bopp. And one night, Chuck was outside viewing the comet on his 10-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope. And he had a CCD camera. And he was doing some photography of it. And when he got done, he went in and he checked out his photographs that he had taken. Beside the comet was something that he couldn't identify. It looked actually like the ring, like the rings around Saturn with Saturn, okay, there. He called it an SLO object, a Saturn-like object is how he described it. Well,
what does that mean?
The picture, the photograph
Well,
of the comet.
Saturn-like? Had rings?
Well, it obviously wasn't Saturn.
Well,
but
yeah.
That's what it resembled, like a miniature Saturn beside the comet. Okay. You can find that online. If you go in and you put Hale-Bopp Comet S and SLO, you should be able to get a picture of that. So anyway, he sent it to Art Bell. He sent it to Bell's website. Now, Bell, everybody today should be familiar with who Art Bell was.
Oh, of course.
Okay. Art, of course, now had passed on. He had a toxic drug reaction to some medication he was taking, ended up killing him. Big shock. And Art in itself, Art Bell himself, we should do a show at some point on Art because, boy, I'll tell you what, he had a hell of a story too. But anyway, he ended up putting this on his website, this photograph. And boy, the media floodgates immediately opened because the comet itself was a hell of a big story. Now, some of the people that he had come on his show to talk about the Hale-Bopp comet and this artifact that was in the photograph, one of them was Dr. Courtney Brown. Now, Brown was a professor out of Emory University.
I found a photo. It says this is the SLO right here.
Yeah, but it's really blown up.
Yeah.
You got to get it with you got to back off a little bit with that. And that shows not only the comet itself, but this thing beside the comet.
Here's
but anyway,
I'll see if I can download this one.
But anyway, suddenly the floodgates opened. Courtney Brown came on Bell's show one night, and they were talking about this. And Brown told Bell a hell of a story that a world-renowned astronomer, had been in touch with Courtney Brown. Now, Courtney Brown was a remote viewer practitioner. All right. He had nothing whatsoever to do with the remote viewing program as conducted by the government, the DIA, the CIA, none of that. But when people like Ed Dames came on the scene, Dames was selling courses to teach people how to do remote viewing. Brown apparently was one that took that course. And suddenly he was billing himself as a remote viewer. And he told Art Bell that this world-class astronomer who had not yet revealed himself had sent some photographs to Courtney Brown stating that that SLO thing was actually an alien spaceship, that was following the comet, and that ultimately they were going to land on Earth. Well, then he said, and later Ed Dames reiterated the fact that the president of the United States at that point, who was William Jefferson Clinton, was reluctantly going to reveal that ET was coming to Earth. Now, the excitement that began to build with these nightly broadcasts coming from Art Bell, because he was talking about, this was the topic that basically took over his show. Then Ed Dames. Now, does everybody know who Ed Dames is?
I do. John, have you ever heard of him?
Vaguely, I'm not sure. I mean, the name sounds familiar.
Yeah. Well, Ed Dames, in fact, had been a part of the Stargate program. Okay. When the government was running secretly the Stargate program, the remote viewing program.
Mm-hmm.
Dames was a coordinator. He was not one of the remote viewers, but he was one of the people that worked with the remote viewers. And you got to remember.
And he was in the Army.
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes.
Because I know he's a veteran.
Yes, he was. He was a major. Okay, yeah. When he came out, he was a major. Now you got to remember that Ingo Swann, the guy that designed the protocols for the remote viewing program, was a personal friend of mine. All right, and I got a lot of this stuff, that I spoke to Swann privately about. And this is years ago. All right, years ago. And of course, Ingo now is gone. He's gone. Art Bell's gone. I mean, a lot of these people are gone. Chuck Schrammick is gone. But Schrammick ended up being attacked by, among others, Alan Hale attacked him. Accused him of being basically a tinfoil hat wearing government conspiracist, and all the skeptical tropes that they come out. The only thing that Chuck ever did was view that comet, photograph it, and send the picture to Art Bell for Bell to put up on his website. He never made any claims about that other than this thing was odd. He didn't know what it was. He couldn't identify it. He went into his database. He couldn't identify it. And that's the only thing he ever said was it's odd, but he ended up getting blamed for it too. And when I say blamed, I'm talking about what ultimately happened with the Heaven's Gate people. So anyway.
And there's their wonderful logo.
Yes. Well, they basically were able to maintain a subsistence level of sustenance by doing computer design, web design, that type of stuff. They actually had a business. That's how they basically, had a room and board. And Marshall Applewhite was the guy leading the band, because by that time, his female associate had died. All right. Now, this is such an involved freaking story. Applewhite himself was one sick puppy. He had originally been in business and academia. He had been, and I'm not making any judgments whatsoever, because you got to remember the time that this happened in. He had been a closet homosexual. All right. And
not just closeted, he was repressed. He was self-repressed homosexual.
Yes.
Which is part of the psychological problem with this group, is the repressive nature of it.
Right. And he has, he was, when I say sick, he performed a self-castration on himself. Okay.
I remember that. That's whack.
So that will give you an idea. And incidentally, we at UFO Magazine ended up being in contact with some of the family members after the mass suicide. They had contacted us. I'm not sure originally why. We had done a number of stories about some of these groups. As a matter of fact, we had an issue that we published called Cults or Cutting Edge. That was the theme. And there were a number of UFO cult-like apparatuses out there. Heaven's Gate, of course, being one of them. Originally, they were just called Bo and Peep, but later they became Heaven's Gate. So when Applewhite got these people, he was a master manipulator. One of the cultists that committed suicide, and this may shock a lot of the audience, was Nichelle Nichols' brother, Lieutenant Uhura, on the original Star Trek. Her brother was one of the cultists that ended up committing suicide. So, you know, this was in many ways, this was a tragedy bar none. But to get back to the story. So when this all came down in 98, when they committed suicide, suddenly UFO Magazine became ground zero.
Yeah, that's what one of our, who was it? Ostain, I think, said something that the magazine was out in front on this story.
Right. We were contacted by all types of media. You wouldn't believe it. I was doing one radio show via the telephone, okay,
right,
after another. They were calling up to interview, wanting to know what we knew about this. And of course, we had been aware of these people for years. Now, Bell, because of being in the forefront of all of this and having all these whack jobs come on his show, one of them...
Is that the official term?
Yes, whack jobs. One of them, in fact, was Major Ed Dames. And Ed Dames, some of the stuff, and I've got recordings of some of the appearances he made on Bell's show. This is what Dames had to say about this. That his group, okay, had remotely viewed this comet.
Right.
That there was a spaceship behind the comet. They remotely viewed that this spaceship was going to release a canister or possibly multiple canisters of a plant-killing pathogen to impact upon the Earth. And then he had other predictions to go with this. Number one, the jet stream was going to drop down from the atmosphere and impact the Earth with 200 and 300 mile an hour winds. That cattle were going to be affected with a bovine virus that would end up impacting the milk supply, that babies would start dying by the thousands, and a bunch of other bullshit, okay? Now, when I heard that, I went almost epileptic, okay? And I began trying to get in touch with Dames. Now, Dames knew damned well who I was, all right? And he avoided me like the plague. Another of his predictions, which he had actually gone to some of these MUFON group meetings and what have you that he had made, and we ran articles about it in the magazine, involved a mass alien landing in New Mexico with dying aliens on board that were seeking government assistance in saving their race. All right. Now, you got to ask yourself, where in the hell does this kind of stuff come from? All right. I have no idea. But Dr. Doom, as he was now known as, Ed Dames on Art Bell Show, everybody began calling him Dr. Doom. I happened to run into him in LA at a MUFON meeting. And I decided, well, shit, this guy doesn't want to talk to me on the phone. He doesn't want to respond to my calls. By the way, can you hear my wife in the background, Gerry? She's in the kitchen.
She's cooking. No. You've not heard cooking until you hear Vicky cooking. Like Anima about lost her shit when I was in the kitchen just banging some pans, and I yelled out, "I'm cooking like Vicky!" Oh shit! I broke something.
Yeah, that's my love.
Way, we'll take a pause here because somebody popped in, Chief. That is Los Angeles Sheriff's Department Chief retired. Patrick Jordan is here. He as our new host of Tuesdays.
Hey guys, how you guys doing?
Pretty good, sir. How are you?
We're doing fine.
Oh, I just got back from my 5-mile walk and I saw the invite to come on. I thought I'd come.
He's
and
one
say
of those
hello.
old guys that's all about the physical fitness and shit, Don. I'm just letting you know what it is.
Well,
Don't worry, he can't hear me whispering this.
I did 38 years with the Sheriff's Department. So my ultimate goal is to get 38 years out of their retirement system. So I don't know if I can make it, right? So I retired at 59. So you can do the math. That's a tall order. So I got to stay in shape along the way. You know, I want those actuarial folks to be, sending me letters, making phone calls, and asking questions. Is that guy dead yet? And keep collecting those checks. So that's my ultimate.
Keep collecting those checks. And I will say this: I'm kind of excited about this. This is a guy who has absolute control over his use of language. I'm putting money down right now.
Unlike you, Gerry.
Yeah, unlike me. I'm a stream of conscious guy. You're a little more prepared, and I like that about you. I've noticed it when we were having our first conversation. I'm like, this guy is in total control of what he is saying, and I like that about you. So I'm laying my wager down now. I bet $20, and I'm not going to say whether it's real money or not because I don't want to get in trouble for it. But I'm putting $20 down that this guy does 4 months of shows without one F-bomb.
Oh yeah, that's I you know what? That probably go with 12 months. You know, the thing about it is
I could do a whole year and win.
How in the hell could you do 38 years
now hell
in law enforcement and not drop an F-bomb?
Here's the thing, your message could be right. Your message could be appropriate. You could take the right guy to jail. But as soon as you start using poor language, and yes, I did use F-bombs to convince people sometimes to get in the car without having to fight me, right? But as I started going up in the ranks, that behavior was less useful for me, right? So I got very accustomed to expressing my opinion without using swear words and using much stronger language that don't include curse words. But they are appropriate when necessary in law enforcement, the military. I'd rather swear at somebody than shoot them. So if they listen to me because I swear at them, that is actually a useful tool. But, my last command, I had 1,200 people that worked for me. And so if you start using F-bombs and swear words, suddenly that becomes the story and not the message you want.
Not the message you're trying to get.
I don't know. I had some lieutenants that didn't have any problem using an occasional F-bomb. So.
Well, I would have to ask, what was your time of service? Because, keep in mind, I started in 83 and I just finished up in 2021. So over time,
I came out of the Army in 72 and entered law enforcement in 74.
Oh, okay.
So I had over 10 years. And so it was during that. Actually, when I got out, when I medically retired, you would have still been probably pretty new on the job with about 3 years.
83 is when I started. So
yeah, I got out in 86.
Yeah, it's well, you keep in mind, I mean, we went through the Rodney King thing. We went through a lot of upheaval and attacks on law enforcement. And for me, it was, I didn't want my work to be defined by my language. I wanted my work to be defined by my successes. And so as time went on, that meant you got a lot better at saying what you needed to say. And I'll be honest with you, when I used to talk to these guys on the streets, and I would talk to them like this, and they would talk to me. I did better at getting people to open up to me than the guy who started using gang language or bro or G-dog or all that kind of stuff that they use. I never talked to gangsters like I was a gangster. I just talked to them like I was a normal person, and I went very far doing that way, because I think that's what they really want, because it implies that you respect them. And if I have to just hold a few F-bombs and a few other words to get them to go along, that's great. And occasionally, if I had to use it to get them to go along, that's great too. But like I said, as you get higher, it's harder to do. But I am excited about, we're doing Dirty Harry on Tuesday, and I got a friend of mine coming on. I'll let you guys know. But there's so many parallels in the first Dirty Harry movie with what's going on in today's society, and that's really what I want to get into. I want to talk about a fun movie, a great movie, but also talk about what's going on today and how the anti-hero like Dirty Harry was frustrated by the controls and stuff that they had in place in the 70s, 60s.
He needs to do another Dirty Harry just to show how insane it is there now.
Oh yeah, a Dirty. Well, we wouldn't allow Dirty Harry anymore because he's toxic masculinity and all that other stuff, right? But I when you watch the movie and you think about the parallels to today, there are so many things I can talk about what's going on in today's society and what we saw in pop culture and popular culture in that movie. So I'm really excited about it. There's several other movies I could do this on, so I'm glad to have a show about cop shows or cop movies, and we get to talk about cop problems and law problems in today's society. So it'll be fun.
No, it'll be great. I'm looking forward to it. Glad you dropped in today. I wasn't sure if you'd be able to make it or not. But welcome to the team.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it, and certainly you guys watch in, and I am all about critics, So if you see something and you're watching, you go, he needs to do this a little better, or something's that worked for you that maybe I could try, just let me know. I'm getting used to keeping my head in the center here too. So
as they always say, those who can't teach and those who can't teach criticize.
Today, so I will tell you, I'm a little busy the next couple of days, not only getting ready for your show, but I got asked to do a lecture at Pepperdine regarding conflict resolution and what was the other subject? Oh, organizational change. Yeah, I got asked to join a group of folks who are trying to implement evidence-based criminal justice reform, and I've been involved in some of their projects, and it's funny because I tell them I'm a conservative. I believe that a lot of the stuff that we did right over the last 40 years, or we did was over the last 40 years, was right. But I also think that there's room for change in government, and so I get these invitations, and so now I got to pull together a PowerPoint and then go talk to some folks for about an hour and a half about organizational change. So it's fun, but I'll bring a lot of that kind of stuff to the show, where I'll talk about my anecdotal experiences and what's going on, what's wrong with some of these Soros-funded DAs, where they're missing their mark, that what are the bullshit studies that they use to justify what they really meant, because I've read them, and where we ought to be going if we want more out of our criminal justice system than we got before, or that we're getting today from these Soros-funded DAs. So it'll be fun.
Perfect case in point on how the system is systematically failing. And you don't even have to look at LA, look at New York City.
Yeah.
Now, originally, I'm from the East Coast. I have and had many friends up in New York City, and looking at it today, for example, what's your opinion of releasing these, in many cases, felons with no bail, to immediately go back out in the street and reoffend probably the same day, if not the next day.
Well, let me first address the argument that brings this up, right? And I grew up blue collar. So if I got in trouble when I was a kid, I was staying there for a while because my parents didn't have the money, right? And so the argument they bring up is people shouldn't have to stay in jail because they don't have the money to get out just because they're poor. Now, that's a compelling argument, but they've used that argument to say that nobody should be in custody, right? And in the past, particularly in LA, and I'm sure that it was somewhere elsewhere, we always had a risk assessment system that looked at what is the risk, because there's really two things about bail. One is there a risk that they'll not show up in court? That's originally what bail's about, is to compel people to show up in court. And the other factor, it's actually a secondary factor, what's their likelihood that they'll reoffend, right? Those are the two issues. And you can look at those risk factors that existed before. If they were too stringent, you can play with the risk assessment tools. You can play with that and ease that up a little bit. And I'll give you one example. So
before you do, can you hold that for just 1 second? Because we got to go to a commercial break. It's only a minute long. We'll be right back. Hey, guys, we're getting ready to have our little Fuel Up commercial. I hope you guys enjoy it. And please remember, Fuel Up supports and is our sponsor for Pop Culture Minefield and all our shows. And of course, welcome to the family, our good friend Patrick here. And Chanel, hey, take us away. She's like Calgon. Take us away. Hi, guys. This is Gerry from Pop Culture Minefield here on KGRA, and we're leaving for our first break. I hope we survive.
Did you know 75% of Americans
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Oh, wow, we survived. Welcome back to the commercial break. Now for some more Pop Culture Minefield on KGRA. Pop Culture Minefield. I keep promising to do a new recording of that shit. I don't know if I'll ever get around to it. But,
I don't know. I don't know who does that voiceover, but they sound like a dope.
Shut up, John.
But so the one example I was going to... the house. Yeah, the one example I was going to give you is failures to appear, which is a critical piece for determining whether you want to give bail, right? So, the blanket policy is of no bail for anybody. It's crazy. That's lunacy. I don't agree with that. I never did agree with that, and I'll never agree with that. But if you look at failures to appear, if somebody has a lot of failures to appear, it strongly indicates that they're not going to show up in court, right? And, most of the people we're dealing with are young people, right? People committing crimes are between the ages of probably 16 and 35.
Guys like Monkey Jeebus.
As people get older, they get a little more wisdom, and their recidivism rate goes down, right? But we also have a lot of responsible people who forget appointments, miss appointments, and do that stuff. As you know, you guys probably all get doctor's appointments reminders just like I do, and you get reminders to go pick up your medicine. One of the ways to deal with failures to appear is implement a program where when you give somebody a ticket, or you give them a ticket for a misdemeanor or even just a traffic citation, that you enroll them in this automated a reminder system they got a court date. Just by doing something like that, like New York did this, and they reduced their failure to appear rate by 25%. So what the goal is you're clearing out some of those people because you're working on that risk. You're giving them an opportunity to be responsible by using a simple tool that we all use and that is effective. And those people who are inclined to abide by the law, but who are still irresponsible because they're young and dumb, and that's just the way it is. If they get to court and they avoid that FTA, then the next time they make an arrest, maybe they don't stay in jail, right? Maybe you can take a risk on them because they've demonstrated in the past that they're worth that risk. And so I think that these prosecutors, what they don't tell you is all of the stuff that goes into giving bail in the past, or how many people were let out because we gave them a risk. In LA, we cited almost all misdemeanors out for decades. So there, we didn't have bail for most misdemeanors. Other jurisdictions could follow our lead, and they probably would be okay. So there is, as you're hearing me say, there's room to improve, but I still believe we need to have bail for the most serious felons. And I would think that most of you guys probably kind of agree with that. If they're worth the risk, let's take the risk. If they're not worth the risk, we shouldn't be taking that risk.
Yeah, it's like I agree with the concept of bail for most of them, except for specific kinds of crimes that, even though the presumption of innocence has to always be there, the high risk of people involved with violent crimes is where I would absolutely be a practitioner of denial of bail. And even though that goes against the Constitution, I'm pretty comfortable with it. What do you think, Don?
Well, it depends. When you have a DA like we have here in Los Angeles, Gascon, okay, that guy is a walking disaster in my book.
Oh shit! Now he's got to skirt this. I'm looking at Patrick right now because he's still in the system. Look at him. He's like, I'm not going to say a goddamn thing right now.
No, I've been a vocal critic of Mr. Gascon. His blanket policy against bail is wrong. His blanket policy not to enforce gun enhancement is wrong. In fact, many of his blanket policies are wrong. In fact, he backed off a lot of them, and now he has a committee. I call it kind of a star chamber that decides who they're going to prosecute, who they're not going to prosecute. And I think that's more politically driven. If somebody,
California is one of the worst political machines in this country outside of Illinois.
Well, I think I knew the DA before him, Jackie Lacey. She was a Democrat. She was a black female. She wasn't exactly the right-wing prosecutor types, but she was a tough law and order gal, and she took care of business, and she was very measured in what she did. What most people don't know, and you probably know this working in law enforcement, is so many cases get dismissed because you don't have sufficient evidence. You don't know that. The DA.
You run into that a lot, Don?
Oh,
sure. Look. It's real simple, and I paid very close attention when Gascon came down from San Francisco. They had almost not a good thing to say about him when he came down here.
Yeah.
Lacey, this is basically a one-party state. I voted for Lacey, okay, in lieu of Gascon, and of course she lost. So now we've got what we've got, and we're, in my opinion, the worst for it.
Oh yeah. He's bad, but I have to tell you, I've been tracking the Soros-funded DAs around the country. I'm not sure if he's the worst, but he's bad.
I would really love to.
No, but he's the one we have.
I'd love to. He's the three of us. I would love to see the three of us get together and go down that rabbit hole of what Soros is doing.
Right. Well, you know what? I got to take off to some other appointments, but this has been fun. I can see that pop culture is ready for somebody like me, where we can talk about these things. What do you guys think?
Oh, absolutely. Sure. I'm all for it, man. Because originally I'd asked Chris DiPerno to join on, but he's such a pussy. And no, he joins us a lot. I love Chris. But you were the first person he suggested to me. And I said, let me check him out. And it took me a week to get back to you. And I'm so glad we finally got to talk yesterday, Patrick. It's such an honor to meet you. And I'm very honored to have you be part of the team with Dawn. And this guy over here, John. He's actually there. He's
John, how are
actually
you?
there.
Yeah.
He's alive. He's breathing.
I'm
Yeah, that's it.
He's absorbing it all, right? So
I'm not an AI. No,
You're not an AI.
That's what an AI would say.
That's the story. Yes.
Yeah. What you do is any question you get asked in the future, if you want to act like you're an AI, respond with, "I think that goes best with sour cream."
All right, guys.
The Jewish listeners will go, "Oh, I like him. I like the way he talks. It's good. He likes the kosher."
I got some work to do, but hey, nice meeting you guys, and hope you can join me on Tuesday.
Thanks for dropping in, Patrick.
All right, thank you.
I'll talk to you later. See you Saturday.
Bye, Patrick.
Yeah, bye.
But I was hoping you two would get to meet. I'm glad he was able to drop in, Don. I do want to address Monkey Jeebus. Fuck you, boomers. He says, "I'm not young. I'm 44. I said, "That's like a child compared to guys like myself." And Don, who's even like you're 15 years older than me, right? 15? We'll just go with 15.
Well, he was
Bullshit. Bullshit.
Said,
what year were you born?
You served in Korea, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, if Mad Mardigan, if you're out there, we love you, buddy. Darius Munchhouse with the $4 super sticker. Of course, I know, even though I can't see it here, I know that it is a pair with a cup of coffee. And we love you, Darius. You are Darius Munchausen, the single safest Munchausen for children. And if nobody gets that joke, it's a joke about Munchausen by proxy. So there you go. And for that, let's give him a quick video. What do we got? What do we got here? Oh, no, I'll just do this one. I'm hip hop, motherfucker. Anyway.
That's something else.
That's something. I'm looking forward to Patrick's first show. I think it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to it too. But I really would like to see a time, Don, where we sit down and we get into a real heavy discussion, maybe on Dangerous Nerds, because that's the show I think where we get more serious. And really go down that rabbit hole on what Soros is doing to this country.
Well, you know, I absolutely attempt to, and you know this, all right, you know this, Gerry. I try not to drop a plethora of F-bombs. But there are those occasions when the stream of consciousness, okay, it just seems somewhere in my unconscious to be so appropriate that yeah, they've been known
and
to
something
slip.
about George Soros can really bring him out, man. He's like one of those astringent things you put on your face to bring out the blackheads, and all of a sudden all that darkness comes out from your skin.
You see, this is the thing. This is the thing. And I really would like to get back to the Heaven's Gate thing.
We do need to get back to it, yeah.
Soros is the thing that brings out the anger in me. And those people that either refuse to accept the fact that he was listen closely, gang, a Jewish Nazi during the Second World War,
yeah, he was
working with the Nazis, the real Nazis, okay, from
actual
Germany,
Nazis. Not the perceived Nazis, right?
And he was Jewish, and now, hey, look, he's persona non grata all over Europe.
Yeah, he's not allowed
they
back
don't want
in most
him
of the
over
European
there.
countries. He's been told
but he's
not
here
to return because what he's done
personal
in the U.S.
friends with Hillary Clinton, for Christ's sake.
The Clintons are why he's here, and how he has not been booted, because every country he goes into, he tries to destroy their economy. He wants to crash their dollar, franc, mark, the pound sterling. Countries that have kicked him out, his home country, won't allow him back because of what he does. He comes here,
evil,
and they just pay no attention to him.
Evil.
He has been here freely moving about, doing what he does best. And he is a major force behind everything from Antifa to BLM. These are communist socialist organizations, because all socialism is democratic communism. That's all it is. It's democratically elected communism that eventually becomes communism.
And one of the biggest problems right now that this nation, America, is suffering is an inability to either speak or accept straight talk. Okay. Forget
that's
the
why
foofra.
YouTube is, they'll probably gank us today for using the N-A-Z-I word. I guarantee you I'm probably going to get in trouble for that because they don't like that word. So I tend to use Yahtzee. I love that game, Yahtzee. What a fun game. I used to play it with my aunts and uncles. But getting back to Heaven's Gate, because I really do want to get back to this, because this is a fascinating period. You know, I was still in the military, and I think the only other thing more shocking than this was the O.J. Simpson trial and murder and just the chase. And then all of a sudden, this Heaven's Gate thing came out of nowhere in the media. I'd never heard of them before. And these fucking people were going around. If you watch the documentary, it's on HBO right now. It starts with them really at the beginnings of, and they had like a Zip and Id nickname for each other, the woman and the man. And they were not in a relationship like was like a man and woman, but they were somehow in
Doe and Ray, Bo and
Doe
Pete.
and Ray. They were in they were in one of the most bizarre orbits of each other. And they had that, what's that referred to? It's the new Joker film took the name, the French word that means shared mental illness, shared delusion. And that's what these two had. And the thing that I wonder is how much of it was based on something that maybe was happening that was being perceived by two people who are off their freaking rockers.
Well, they were mentally ill, but I was, before we took the break,
right?
And you introduced Patrick. I was just talking about being able to encounter Ed Dames at a MUFON meeting, okay, where he was the keynote speaker. I had been trying to get some interaction with him because I had a lot of questions to ask him, and what I discovered. And, you know, look, my wife will tell you that there are those moments when I am simply a one-way son of a bitch, okay? One way. And if somebody, and I was like this when I was a detective, if somebody intentionally lied to me, knowing full well they're lying, when I discovered that, that was it. That was the end, okay? Especially with informants. If you have an informant that you're working a case from the street and, you know, the guy gets something wrong, hey, that's one thing. I thought the guy was going to be there at 10 o'clock. He didn't show up until 11:30. I didn't know. Well, you know, that you understand. But if he says he's going to be there at 10 o'clock, period, and you look him in the eyes, well, how do you know that? And he gives you a reason how he knows it, and then the guy doesn't show up. He intentionally lied to me. Well, that's basically what Ed Dames did to me. Because during the Q&A with Dames at this MUFON meeting, I confronted him about his prediction that this alien race was going to land in New Mexico seeking medical assistance because they were all dying. And they were going to be, this was part of the story, they were going to be covered in some kind of goo and just a whole lot of crap. So I asked him about that, and he looked me right in the eyes. He said, I never said that. Well, he did say it because I had two witnesses to the original meeting where he made that prediction, and they had written an article for UFO magazine where they reported that. One of the women was a woman by the name of Carol Ann, I believe it was Douche. Carol Ann Douche had written that article.
Of a family of douches, right?
No. This is serious.
I know. I can't help it though.
Yeah, you're a dick. We know that. Okay, so let's move along. So anyway, the second he did that, I knew this guy was as full of shit as a Christmas turkey. Now, the stuff on Art Bell, he's never retracted any of that. The 200 and 300 mile an hour jet streams that are going to impact the earth, the bovine viruses that's going to destroy all of the milk supply, the dead babies by the thousands and thousands, the planet killing pathogens. This all got mixed up in the Heaven's Gate mishmash. Right. So, when they committed suicide, all right, and I remember well the morning that story broke, and almost immediately our phones started ringing off the hooks. Then the media ended up zeroing in on, among other people, Art Bell and Chuck Schrammick. Now, in this mishmash, Whitley Strieber, who had been
He's
working,
a wackadoodle too, by the way.
No. You think?
Yeah.
Really?
After doing some reading after you talked about him, I'm like, yeah, that guy's a little wackadoodle.
Yeah. Well, I could talk out of school, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that on this show. But he ended up going on Larry King. And he claimed that, and by the way, a lot of this is in that paper I sent you. He went on Larry King, Whitley did, claiming that he and Art Bell originally exposed the hoax about the Hale-Bopp comet and the alien spaceship. Now, there was another guy that popped up in this mix by the name of Lee Shargell. I had never heard of this guy. And he was being billed as, I believe, an astronomer or a physicist, okay, that was talking about the aliens on board the spacecraft that were dolphinoids. Dolphinoids. Now, what the hell is a dolphinoid? Well, a dolphinoid apparently was some type of sentient aquatic life. Well, he ended up going on, I think it was George Will and Sam Donaldson's show back in, this was all in that time period, around 97, 98. And then he had to admit, Shargell had to admit, that he was simply a science fiction writer. He was not an astronomer. He was not a physicist. These wackadoodle dudes were coming out of the woodwork with this case, which, you know, if I had a degree in psychology or psychiatry, this would be a very interesting phenomena to explore, how these types of things happen. But the UFO field has been rife with that going back to the very, very beginning. So Chuck Schrammick was a guy that was also blamed for this whole thing. And like I had said a little bit ago, he was my friend. I knew the guy. He never did a damn thing. He ended up dying of cancer in, I believe it was May of 2000, which was was a real sorry time because he had a website that he had kept updated because he had gone after NASA vociferously because of the way NASA has been playing fast and loose with a lot of stuff. Like, for example, the STS-48 video, the story that I broke back in 92 with a space shuttle mission encountering UFOs in orbit and what appeared to be a hostile action when something shot at these UFOs, which was all captured on a live NASA feed. And when I basically brought that to the public's attention on NBC and on CNN with King, suddenly that live feed is no longer live. It was encrypted by NASA the day after that show. So Schrammich would put a spotlight on items like that. And when he died, we lost not only a great humorist, but a great light bringer when it came to pointing out the truth. But Art Bell suffered a real loss of face. One of the people, and what caused me originally to write that piece that you have, one morning I had gotten up, I had a doctor's appointment downtown at the VA, a routine checkup. And getting ready to leave, I had turned on the radio and I heard, what the hell's the guy's name? I heard James Randi, being interviewed on one of the local stations about this Heaven's Gate travesty. And he had laid the blame squarely on the shoulders of Art Bell. Now, Bell, in my opinion, had no more to do with the Heaven's Gate fiasco than I did. But the one thing, the major difference between Art Bell and myself, and in many ways, we were kind of rivals because I made sure the people that I interviewed were not your run-of-the-mill whack jobs, okay? Like Dr. Jonathan Reed, that's another story we can talk about at some point, or right. Dr. Harley Bird, which was another completely off-the-wall moron that I had gone to the FBI, the Postal Service, the LAPD, the LA Sheriff's Department about because of death threats this guy made against me. A real nutcase. Incidentally, this guy, Harley Bird, had been arrested for indecent exposure by exposing himself to a bunch of people in a public park here in LA. So it's some crazy stuff.
Sounds like just another ass clown.
Oh, well, oh, yeah. But I'll tell you, so I wrote this thing about Art Bell, but the main difference between Bell and I, if somebody like Ed Dames were on my show and started coming off with some of these crazy, prophecies like dead babies and the jet stream and aliens sending planet-killing pathogens down to the earth, you can bet I would have jumped square in the middle of his butthole. But Bell would just let them go on and not challenge them. That was his main problem as I saw it. And he didn't appreciate me pointing that out, Gary. Not at all.
No way. Oh, man. Hey, I want to point out that Hex Allen Comics is here. It's good seeing you, man. We don't see you enough on the show. Glad to see you. Andy Morrow is here. Let's see. Who else jumped in? Who else? I think that's it. That's all that's jumped in.
Hex Allen.
I said Hex. That's what I was talking about. I said that's what brought up the whole thing was X Allen. I love it when Martin doesn't listen to what I'm saying. He's so caught up in what he's reading. He goes, Gerry said something. I don't know what. Death threats. Tell them I'm sure you want to kill me. I just don't think you have the intelligence to be able to do it. I just simply go, well, good luck. Just remember I'm packing all the time. But I don't know, man. So you were pretty deeply into this, dude. I just messaged, by the way, Mac. I have asked him to take all your essays and articles and do audio readings of them for the show, so we could post them. All your essays and articles is like audio books, little short ones, little truncated ones, and that way people can enjoy. Of course, I'm
wit
sure
and wisdom of Don Ecker. Oh yes,
the wit and wisdom of Don Ecker, and of course, Mac will pronounce your name as Don Ecker when he says your name. He did it over the weekend because I spent Saturday with him, and I said, "You got any special messages for Don?" And he goes, "Don Ecker," and of course, he sends you his best. It was a fun weekend, by the way. I drank. I actually drank this weekend. I drank a lot of beer. I don't normally drink. I just had a good time hanging out with my daughter, her boyfriend.
Well, if anybody wants to get me a birthday present, my birthday's the end of July. I am a particular fan of Beaujolais, which is a French wine, actually not too expensive. It's kind of a light fruity, not fruity, but a light fruity red wine from the Gamay grape, which is one of my personal favorites. I love to pop a cork on a bottle of that when I'm having some roast beef or something. It just goes so well with it. So just a thought.
Yeah, it'll be a cold day in goddamn hell when I drink fucking Budweiser. I'm a beer man. I like real beer.
There's only one real beer, and if you're not talking Guinness, I'm talking in this country Pabst Blue Ribbon.
PBR. By the way, if you want to send that to Don Ecker, read the note. It says, send all gifts to Don Ecker, care of Los Angeles, California. Just send it to the state. They know who he is.
Or send it to the NSA. They know who I am.
NSA, they'll make sure it gets to him. Hello, dear NSA. We have a gift for Don Ecker. We don't know how to get a hold of him, but we know you're watching him 24/7. Would you drop this off? That's how they get funded, by the way, by doing UPS's job for people that they're spying on. I don't know if that's true. I'm sure somebody at the NSA is going, that's funny because it's true. I'm a dick. Somebody, so many times I've been told that, be careful what you say. They might be spying on you. I said, that is one dude that's going to be laughing and also bored out of his gourd that's spying on me. It's like, why does he always do that in the bathroom? I'm just curious. I'm asking for a friend.
I think my NSA case agent has committed suicide out of boredom.
Yeah, I don't get it. I'm sorry, John. I mess with you. Darius says that Don is so hip he drank PBR before he was a hipster, or before the hipster.
That's true.
Yeah. I've been drinking Guinness since 1977 when I was 13, and because you're in the county I drank it, there is no age. It's like if you can belly up to the bar, you're legally allowed to drink in the bar. and I started drinking at 13, and I love that stuff, man. But as far as American beers go, it's just very little that I like. I like the German stuff. I like German beers. And I do love, I got to tell you, I do love Bass Ale. It's
How did
one of
you
the-
like that short vid that Kid Rock did last week with the Bud Light? I laughed my tail end off.
Shotgunning those, yeah, man.
Machine gunning. Forget shotguns.
Yeah. Well, I was going to use shotgunning because shotgunning beers. But anyway, whole new meaning. But yeah, he shot the shit out of him. And first of all, I can't boycott Bud Light because I would never drink that shit. You know, let's get this right. Budweiser is piss water. That's all it is. It's piss water. And then Bud Light, it's like ultra filtered piss water. No, thank you. I think I would rather take a dive into a swimming pool full of double-edged razor blades. That's an Al Yankovic song.
Well, yeah, when it comes to beer, and I'm not a big, as years ago I drank a lot of beer. I'm not as big a beer drinker as I was. Occasionally I'll have I'll have a couple of beers, but if I am, it's PBR. It's got to be PBR. Budweiser, nah.
Now I got to tell
Miller's
you,
Light,
for
nah.
another piss water beer that I actually did enjoy back in the day, because where we hung out, a bunch of veterans and I on campus at Eastern Illinois University, was this one bar right off the square, and they had the big Schlitz sign, and that was their big thing on tap. Was they had PBR too, but they had Schlitz, like 3 taps just for Schlitz. And all the vets on campus drank Schlitz, man. If you like German beer, Gary, you should try, you know, Darius, when you copy and paste, it becomes obvious when you get the accented letters involved. So stop.
I'm not even going to try to pronounce that.
Yeah, I'm not either. Let Anima
It's
do it.
mine Schultze or
It's mine Scheiße.
It's mine Scheiße. Yeah, the bee looking thing is a Scheiße. So it's my shit.
I bet Don was a ham straker back in the day.
Hams? No. What was your preferred piss water beer?
Rolling Rock.
Oh man, I told you. Yeah, we were just talking about this the other day, you and me, Don. Because yeah, Rolling Rock to me was one of the best mountain beers outside of. I didn't like Coors. As a little kid, my dad would give me sips of his Coors, and I was like, yeah, but as an adult, I tasted it. I was like,
back
but
in the
Rock's
70s.
good.
Back in the 70s, I can remember a short time that Coors beer was like pixie dust, okay? They were selling 12 packs of Coors, and people would have to go out to Colorado to get it and then bring it back for astronomical prices, okay? Coors beer in Pennsylvania. This was before I moved out west. And when I got out to Colorado and I checked it out, it was like, what's the big deal about this? It's not no city beer. It's not no country beer. It's Panther piss. And that was about it. And they were Nazis at corporate headquarters there. Oh boy, I'll tell you what, I had some stories about shit that they were pulling at corporate, at Coors.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That is
so I never really liked that beer.
I got to tell you a funny little thing about that. My dad, it was one of the things he hated when he kidnapped me and moved us from Phoenix all the way to Virginia. Okay. Was the fact that there was no Coors, because it had to be shipped refrigerated, and the refrigeration trucks weren't affordable to Coors. So there was nothing east of the Rockies that carried Coors until like I think it was 74. And finally they got a fleet of refrigerated trucks and started shipping. And I swear to God, it was like Christmas when my dad came home with like 8 or I think it's like he had arms full of 6-packs of Coors. He was so fucking ecstatic that he got all that Coors. I got Coors. It was like a holiday. And I will make fun of you, Darius, that you know, what did he say here? He says, you think I don't know how to type the copy paste? I'm almost offended. And then he says, I just wanted to hear Gerry say it, Anima Confusa. And what, that you copy and paste it again? I do know some people know how to do those special characters, how to get them on the keyboard. I don't know how to do it. I get frustrated by that. You ever run into that, Don, when you're typing? Like you have to use a French or Germanic letter, and I don't know how to get them.
I don't bother.
Yeah,
it's an ASCII table.
I spell it phonetically, or I go and I find it online and copy it and put it into my document. Because I'm like, I don't know how to pull up special characters on my keyboard. Never have learned.
Oh, you need an ASCII table. That's all.
Oh, look at him. He puts the umlauts over the O on Lowenbrow. We all know he copied and pasted it again. Hefeweizen, German beers are amazing. I'm telling you, Dunkelstein was one of them, I think, that Ultra Rob would get in the house. And I'm like, oh my God, this shit's good.
Well, you know,
hoppy.
When I first went overseas to Southeast Asia, to Okinawa,
aliens
the
love
army,
beer.
The army was still only paying us once a month. This was before the Eagles started to shit twice a month. Okay. So by the end of the month, when you get paid, and at my rank, when I first went over, I was a PFC. At my rank, believe me, that paycheck was gone by the beginning of week 3 of the month. So what to do? All right. Well, Japan, the Japanese, believe it or not, are some pretty awesome beer. They have some pretty awesome beer meisters. And they had a couple of breweries on Okinawa. So you could take a tour through these. And of course, touring through the brewery, you could drink all the beer you wanted to drink. So that's how we would stretch the paycheck. You go up there and drink free beer.
Yeah, and like I said, when I was broke, I just needed a beer, and I would go get Milwaukee's Beast or Mickey's Big Mouth. But I swore off Mickey's Big Mouth after I got drunk on it one night, and it's the only beer I've ever drank that made me throw up. And I'm like, that shouldn't happen with beer. You should not be throwing up drinking beer. And Mickey's Big Mouth is garbage. It is garbage. Worst thing I've ever drank. Milwaukee's Beast, it's just more piss water. And somebody goes, get Budweiser. It's like, look, piss water's piss water. I'm sorry. You know, it's just my experience as a professional drinker.
Yeah, I like a beer that tastes like a beer. Okay?
I want to taste it. Yeah, goddamn right. But Penny said, what's beer got to do with aliens? Even aliens like beer. I guarantee you that. Aliens came to Earth. Why do you think they're here? You think it's over getting gold?
Who do you think
it's over
taught
fuel and water? No, it's
who
beer.
do you think taught the early Egyptians?
That's right.
They were making beer before they started baking bread.
As they say in Ireland, slan, mate. The word slan, of course, is from the alien language.
Beer was before bread, right? You know that.
Yes. That's how yeast came into existence. The beer making process. You're like, hey, look what happens when we put some flour in this stuff to dry it up. You can bake it. It becomes food that you can eat while you're drinking more beer. God damn the Irish. We all know the Irish were already traveling in outer space until beer. They had flying cars until beer. John Osteen says, had to step away, but Heaven's Gate was one of the Jesus movement cults from California, and one had lots of land in Missouri. Missouri community tried to incorporate as a town from the fear, still have all record. I got to tell you, Missouri has zero tolerance and has for a long time with religions that they think are weird. Don't believe me? Go look at the history of the Mormons in Missouri and the Catholics. Now, Springfield is oddly there's a lot of Catholic schools here in Springfield. And my daughter went to them when she first started going to school. But the fact is, there was a period of time, there was nothing Catholic here. And Missouri, Springfield area, Ozarks, they didn't like Mormons or Catholics. Get the hell out of here, boys. You head west, go to Utah. Catholics, fuck you. I don't care where you go. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. The community leader gave me tons of amazing records when I was a club reporter, which I still have. Outstanding. The Mormon End of Days Garden of Eden is in Missouri. That is correct. But you don't see very many Mormons here for a reason, because they were driven out of this state. And that's why they headed towards Utah and founded their own state, because of the shit that went down right here in Missouri. We killed a few of them here.
You know, there was almost a war there in Utah before the Civil War.
Yes.
The Army
I remember reading
was
about
sent
that.
out
Yeah.
to put down the Mormon rebellion. They were they were going to try to succeed from the United States, and they were pretty rebellious. I'm sure you've heard of the Mountain Meadows Massacre, right?
It is part of what led to the quashing of the multiple marriages, was the Mormons' attempt to try to stop fighting with our federal government. But yeah, what was it again?
The Mountain Meadow Massacre.
Yes, I do know that one.
Where the Mormons massacred a wagon train of immigrants that were headed toward the Oregon coast, and tried to blame the Native Americans, the Indians, for it.
Yep. They did everything. They staged everything to make it look like that. It's when you read about it, and you can read about it. It's in fact, I think there is Smithsonian, even though I don't trust Smithsonian much on a lot of stuff. There's a lot of leftists in there doing a lot of revisionist history. But there is an article up there that's fairly accurate on the massacre at the Smithsonian. And seriously, you think I'm being facetious? No, it's true. They have been infiltrated. It started because of the entertainment end of the Smithsonian. They have a channel, and they started infiltrating through the network into the organization. And they're all over doing revisionist history all over the place. In the freaking museums, you'll find shit that's wrong, historically wrong, in the museums from this shit. It's crazy. They're changing things, changing the stories behind stuff. It's really creepy.
And I last night introduced Gerry to a former North American animal he had never heard of.
Never heard of it. Go ahead. Yeah.
It was called the short-faced cave bear.
Never heard of it before. And even though, I got to tell you, I looked at the comparison chart of it and the polar bear. the aggressive nature of that thing is really scary, man. And it posed a real problem to humans. It would go right into them.
Stand up on its hind legs, it could reach between 13 and 15 feet tall.
Yes. The top of the pelvic girdle on this bear when it was standing up, a human barely reached it in height. That's how big these things were. That's the top of the hips. It's like,
yep,
that's a huge freaking bear. But oddly, we have polar bears as big as that. And but polar bears, even though we do have stories with them, and as well as Kodiaks tend to be more aggressive than grizzlies. But man, polar bears, when they're hungry, they're looking at you. They're thinking. And that scares the shit out of me. Polar bears. And by the way, Kodiaks, one of my favorite stories. I have the article on my computer. I found it, of William Shatner when he had a scary moment. He was out bow hunting with friends and found himself up against one of those Alaskan Kodiaks. And it was what's that line from South Park? It's coming right at me. It was coming right at him. And all he had was a goddamn bow, and he killed the Kodiak with a goddamn bow. He doesn't, I can't remember. He said it was a lot of arrows he put in that thing before it dropped.
Well, you know, I've been watching Shat on, I'm rewatching the entire series of Boston Legal. Now, I got to tell you, one of my favorite actors in the world is James Spader. And the dynamic between Spader and William Shatner on that show just never ceases to crack me up. Those guys together were freaking brilliant. Brilliant.
I'm not going to argue with that because of you, I started watching Blacklist, which led to a funny moment because nothing annoys me more in this life than seeing people do stupid shit on a show with I just automatically just start laughing, go, what the fuck? But I loved that first episode. That was really good. I went back and watched the pilot all over again. Thoroughly enjoyed it. But there was this moment, Don, I swear to God, these guys are testing my patience when it comes to weapon handling. Look at this, the logic of this shot.
Well, politically incorrect though it may be, we used to call that, back in the day, a Polish firing squad.
Now, the only guy that's safe is that guy over on the right that's not completely in the circle. He'll survive. But man, oh man, I saw that. The minute it happened, I went, I got to capture that and I got to post about that. That's fun. That's just dumb. It's sort of like when I was watching The Rookie a couple weeks back, and they're getting ready to do a tactical assault on a building, breaching a building to go get some bad guys. And you got this guy in the number 2 position in the stack with his M4, or the civilian version for law enforcement, which is a modified AR-15. And he's like walking behind the guy number 1 in the stack with his barrel aimed right into his back. I'm like, I'm telling you, man, I would have butt stroked somebody if they pointed their weapon at me. Just knock the shit out of them. That'll teach them. They learn very quickly. Don't point your fucking weapon at me. God, who's in charge of their tactical stuff on that show? But before we wrap up here, I do want to go. Let's close up on this Hail Bob thing with this group, because the insanity. Look, when you get into a group like that, and it's that that folie à deux, the French word or phrase, turn of phrase, meaning shared madness, is what happens in these cults like this. That these people, it didn't look like anybody resisted. At least when you find out what happened down in Jonestown, that there are people that tried to escape into the jungle, and others were held at gunpoint and forced to drink it and forced to give it to their children in Jonestown, the poison Kool-Aid. You know, these people voluntarily drank this shit. There was no signs of resistance, and they all just laid peacefully down and died. How insane is that, Don?
Well, look, I see it this way. In the human Homo sapien sapien race, there are three types of people. There are the sheep who want to go along to get along.
Right.
There are the sheep dogs, which basically are there to protect the sheep. And there are wolves who don't give a shit about anything except filling their belly. Now, unfortunately, most people are sheep. They don't want the confrontation. It makes them physically ill, okay? The idea of resisting. Then you have the sheep dogs. I kind of see myself as a sheepdog. I see you as a sheepdog.
Yep.
Then you got the wolves, okay? The wolves are the ones that Gascon, the DA out here in LA, are opening up the jails because of overcrowding and letting them back out to walk the streets. And those are the ones that you got to be watching out for. But the sheep, okay, they're at anybody's mercy. And the best you can hope for is that they don't run into somebody like that whack job Marshall Applewhite, okay? Or Jim Jones, or any of the others.
David
Hey,
Crash.
I just realized something, Gary. I didn't do a rant today.
No. There's no rants today. And we're out of time, really. God damn it.
I feel robbed.
We'll get one in this afternoon. Don't forget, in a few hours, we've got Dangerous Military Nerds. I'm going to talk about what's coming up on May 3rd. May 3rd is going to be a big day for us. Let me share this image. I love this, that we're going to be doing this. Let me pull this graphic up real quick here.
And in full disclosure, we're also going to be talking about how close are we, and this may freak you out, how close are we to World War III?
The doomsday clock, man. They've already brought up the doomsday clock is ticked forward. And I'm not normally a person that's afraid of this shit. I got to tell you, I'm concerned. I'm very concerned. But this will be our May 3rd show. Oh, great. Monkey Jeebus is covering one of the guests there. Actually, I've got a better graphic than that one. Let me delete that one. I updated it because the other person that's joining in the show is one of the things that's got me really excited. He is a Marine sniper, and he is the sniper that survived the incident in Benghazi. He's going to join us along with Sarah Adams, who is the CIA intelligence analyst who collected and did the investigation into Benghazi. A lot of her opinions, we don't share or agree with them completely, but I like this lady. I like the cut of her jib. She's a good gal. Knows her job.
Gerry.
Boone and she are going to be joining us, and it's going to be a very, very good show. This afternoon, we're going to be talking about how close to World War III are we? You know, and I promise not to talk like that. How close to World War III are we? Hi, I'm 1940s guy. I'm doing radio.
We have 10 seconds.
Oh, do we? Are we going to end the show?
Gotta go now.
Right in the middle
Bye.
of me talking? I'm not saying to do that, Chanel, but I'm saying while I'm talking in the show.
Good night.
Those sons of bitches.
Ma, I'm doing a show.